So with all the nonsense that's going on in Washington right now, it's kind of funny to just laugh at all the bullshit on both sides. Long Shot is starring Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen plays Fred Flarsky, a free-spirited investigative journalist, just recently out of a job when he unexpectedly runs into his childhood crush and babysitter. Charlize Theron plays Charlotte Field, presidential hopeful for 2020, decides to impulsively hire Fred Flarsky as her speechwriter against the wishes of her staff. The pros of this film, well, I have to say that Seth Rogen finds himself in comedic prime. It's been a while since I've seen him flex comedically, and he's really at the top of his game here. And I think it's the kinetic energy he has with Charlize Theron. And Charlize Theron, as of late, has kind of made a turn in the comedic roles that she plays. We saw her in Gringo. We also saw her in the film Tully. And in this one, she really has fun playing a presidential hopeful. I mean, this is the kind of film that we kind of need in these contentious times. I mean, we're pretty divided here in America, and it makes the dinner table conversation a bit awkward. So I think this film is a nice film to go to the theaters and just kind of sit down and kind of just deal with all the bullshit that's going on right now. I think the film is a sharp satire, political satire, and we kind of need this film. So I think the pros again of this film is just the way both Rogen and Theron are just really playing well off each other, and they really have some nice chemistry. It just goes above and beyond. They recall times that they had, again, they knew each other in childhood. She used to babysit him, and things got awkward one night when he decides to kiss her and he gets a 13-year-old boner, and that was kind of the last thing that both remember, and so when they see each other as adults, it's a little bit embarrassing, but she decides to make this kind of maverick move, especially because she's an hopeful for running as the president in 2020, and her advisors are trying to punch up her image. Her numbers are strong in the poll, but there's some things that she has to work on, and for some reason she's thinking that she could be funnier. Well, we got Seth Rogen playing this kind of aloof investigative journalist who kind of has to quit based on principles because a media conglomerate just bought out his media company, and he decides to go solo. But that's when also we have O'Shea Jackson Jr. as his best friend come into this film, and they work well as well. I want to say that almost the saving grace of this film is O'Shea Jackson Jr., but I mean, dude is so funny, and I think ever since Straight Outta Compton, he's really made an impact in a short amount of time. I think it doesn't hurt that your dad is Ice Cube, but when you have a striking resemblance of him, you were kind of perfect to play him in Straight Outta Compton. He was also good in another indie comedy film, and in this one he just builds on what he's done with those two films. I know he's also coming out in Godzilla, so I'm looking out for that. Rogen, O'Shea Jackson Jr., who also got big. I remember seeing him in 2015, kind of looking slim, but I'm not trying to body shame dude, but Seth Rogen looks kind of rather slim, but I did see him in Godzilla, so he looks kind of thinner, but maybe it was a choice, but I think they both work well off each other, and you could really tell the chemistry was genuine, just as Theron and him are genuinely starting to fall in love with one another. But that also makes for some conflict for the film. You really can't see a presidential hopeful with this kind of aloof, nobody. She has to be with someone like a prime minister or, someone of her level. And that also creates some like tension, and where she has to kind of choose what she wants. Does she want to blossom with this relationship she has started with Rogen, or does she really want to go for the goal of being the first ever female president? And I think that this film is so timely, and I could see why it is kind of like a critical darling right now. It's getting some really high praises, and the film's funny, but I think I'm running into cons where, to me, the laughs are a little bit scattershot. There are some funny moments, don't get me wrong, and actually Boyz II Men makes a cameo, and that was also a funny scene. But there's some like background noises that the scenes that just seem kind of background, where it just gets a little, you know, stale, or at points it kind of riffs and gets a little bit improvisational. And I tend to like that in a lot of these comedies, but in this one it almost seems like they kind of ran out of ideas and not know how to get to its third act. But when we get to the third act, it's also plays it kind of safe. I mean, for something as a political satire and kind of mirroring what's going on, I mean, Bob Odenkirk plays the current president, and he is a president that was formerly a president on a hit sitcom show, and he doesn't want to run for his second term based on him wanting to go back into Hollywood, and his venture is making that transition to film. That's also funny, and Bob Odenkirk is another great actor, and he's funny in here too, don't get me wrong. But you can kind of parallel with our current president, Donald Trump, with The Apprentice stint, and maybe he was better at doing that than what he's currently doing right now. It just becomes a little bit too safe, and it wraps up kind of nicely, and it's almost like they want a kind of a bipartisanship kind of unifying, which is great, because we need that. But with something like Longshot to come along and kind of have an edge, it kind of loses that luster. It doesn't become that edgy political satire that you want to go and see and kind of stick in people's faces, and like, because this is a film that takes a political stance. It doesn't really do that. It kind of keeps things neutralized, and we could have kind of had a little bit more. I mean, if you wanted to get real left with it, get real left with it, and it just doesn't quite do that. I mean, even if you want to be nice to the right, I mean, it does that, but you again are contending with trying to bring something new to this kind of political satire. But it also plays as a romantic comedy, so I commend director Jonathan Levine from The Whackness. He also did 50-50, which I think is his masterpiece. He's done some other films. His last film wasn't too great, and get to see it, but Snatched, remember that? Maybe you don't. He's a director that really takes these kind of everyday average Joe and kind of puts him into kind of an extreme scenario. Kind of does that with Seth Rogen going out with a female presidential hopeful. So that we kind of seen that in Knocked Up, with Katherine Heigl and the pretty girl falling for the loser. I mean, you kind of get that here too. But their chemistry is what really holds you, and their chemistry works most of the time. And so with wrapping up, I think that the film is a winner. We kind of need Longshot in today's society. I just think that the film could have been funnier in some scenes and a little bit more edgier. So with that, I'm gonna give Longshot a commendable 3.5. I think this is a winner, and if you need some laughs, especially if you're going through some things right now, I say go and buy yourself a ticket, or go watch Avengers again. But again, buy yourself a ticket for Longshots, because you gotta support. This is Peter Man, what's up? And I'm glad to be back on LiveWire Film Reviews. Looking forward to doing more reviews. Check out our TV reviews. Got my man Andy Mack out here killing the game right now. And go see that Avengers Endgame review by my boy Ray. And check out this review. Hit like, and if you haven't subscribed, what you doing? Subscribe. Have yourself a wonderful day. This is LiveWire.